is the U.S. halting the supply of critical weapons to Ukraine, signaling a strategic shift. The U.S. decision to temporarily halt the delivery of key weapons to Ukraine is raising concerns about a potential shift in strategic direction amid escalating conflict. The abrupt move by the U.S. to suspend arms supplies has sparked widespread alarm not only in Kyiv, but also among European allies, casting doubt on Washington's long-term commitment. Although the U.S. insists this is a one-time event, the decision has nonetheless raised serious questions about America's strategic posture in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. According to National Public Radio (NPR) and The Economist, July 2nd to 3rd, the suspended weapons include critical systems such as 3 OPAC-3, interceptor missiles for the Patriot air defense system, 8,496 rounds of 155mm artillery shells, 142 AJM-114 Hellfire air-to-ground missiles, 252 GMLRS rockets, 25 Stinger missiles, and other equipment. The Pentagon reportedly turned around military aid flights on June 30th and July 1st. U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce stated, "This is not the end of our support for Ukraine or weapons deliveries. It is a single event and a specific situation." According to Germany's international broadcaster DW on July 3rd, the announcement to pause weapons shipments has once again served as a reminder that the supply of advanced military equipment to Ukraine is no longer as secure as it once was. This comes even as the U.S. State Department downplayed the decision, with spokesperson Tammy Bruce stating, "This is not the end of our support for Ukraine or weapons deliveries. It is a one-time event and a specific situation, and we will discuss what happens next going forward." An internal US government review revealed the depletion in stockpiles of artillery shells, interceptor missiles, and precision-guided munitions. The decision was initially made in the first half of June, reflecting Washington's need to manage simultaneous confrontations in the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. The pause in weapons shipments comes at a critical time, as Russia ramps up weapons production and intensifies its attacks, including strikes on recruitment centers in Poltava, Kyiv, and Odessa, as well as ground offensives in eastern Ukraine. The absence of American weapons presents serious challenges for Ukraine. Jana Kobzova, a senior policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, told if this turns into a long-term issue, Ukraine will definitely face difficulties in responding, partly because some U.S. systems are not easily replaceable, especially air defense systems. On July 3rd, Russia's Vedomosti newspaper cited Dmitry a researcher at the Center for International Security of the Primakov Institute of World Economy and International Relations, IMO, who said political factors are secondary and the most urgent issue for Kyiv is the lack of missile reserves for air and missile defense. Meanwhile, Marina Miron, an expert from King's College London, emphasized that production time is a crucial issue. It takes 2 years to produce an air defense missile system. So even if you buy them now, it doesn't mean they will be available on the battlefield. In particular, the shortage of personnel to operate complex systems is another major concern. According to Miron, it takes around 90 people to operate a Patriot air defense system, while Ukraine is suffering personnel losses without any guarantees of trained replacements. According to Vito, the U.S. decision to halt the supply of critical ammunition to Ukraine signals a shift in strategic direction. White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly confirmed that the decision was made in the name of national interest. Specifically, experts interviewed by Vedomosti believe that the suspension of U.S. arms deliveries reflects a strategic reassessment of the country's military stockpiles and global priorities. Analyst Dmitry Stefanovich pointed out that the main reason is that the U.S. is auditing its own weapons, inventory evaluating stockpiles of all types of munitions, its capacity to increase production, and weighing all of this against the rate of consumption in high-intensity conflicts. As a result, all expenditures are likely to face cuts. Dmitry Suslov, deputy director of the Center for Comprehensive European and International Studies at the Higher School of Economics in Moscow, believes that the U.S. is struggling to manage simultaneous confrontations in the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. From his perspective, a prevailing view in Washington is that the U.S. must first contain China, which has led to a reduction in American support for Ukraine. Suslov also argues that the U.S. is exerting pressure on Ukraine, sending a clear signal that Washington does not support prolonging the hostilities and is pushing Kyiv toward new concessions to Moscow, even though, in the short term, Ukraine is unlikely to compromise. President Zelensky would only adopt a more conciliatory stance if Ukraine were to face a real shortage of ammunition and the threat of a frontline collapse, Suslov concluded. For his part, former U.S. Army Europe Commander Ben Hodges offered a similar view, suggesting that the U.S. decision to pause weapons shipments is not about stockpiles, but rather a choice by the Trump administration to appease Russia. Amid the reduction in U.S. aid, European support for Ukraine appears to be clearly increasing. As Denmark assumes the rotating presidency of the EU for the next 6 months, it has seized the opportunity to return Ukraine's EU membership application to the political agenda. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen declared, "The EU must strengthen Ukraine. Ukraine plays a crucial role in Europe's security. Our contribution to Ukraine is also a defense of our own freedom. Ukraine belongs in the European Union." This is in the interest of both Denmark and Europe. This statement came after a visit to Ukraine by German Foreign Minister Johann Witt, who described Ukraine's difficult situation as Berlin's most important foreign policy task. Earlier, NATO members in Europe agreed to raise defense spending to 5% of GDP following a meeting at the end of June. Europe is now the largest investor in Ukraine's domestic defense industry, aiming to hedge against potential future cuts in U.S. supplies. On July, Russia's RT channel quoted Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov as saying that the U.S. sending fewer missiles to Ukraine could accelerate the end of the conflict. Peskov noted that the U.S. apparently simply cannot produce missiles in the necessary quantities, suggesting that much of the supply may have been redirected to Israel. The fewer foreign missiles that enter Ukraine, the closer the special military operation is to its conclusion, Peskov emphasized. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova has repeatedly criticized Western arms shipments to Ukraine, arguing that they only prolong the conflict and increase the risk of escalation. Zakharova stressed that the West cannot control where the weapons they supply to Kyiv end up and that this could ultimately backfire on them.